By 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, Shanice Williams had lost everything. Furniture on the sidewalk, her daughter's toys in the rain. 8 years of memories, gone. But what she didn't know yet was that this was only the beginning. But before we dive in, hit that like button, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and share this story. You won't believe what happens next. 6 months earlier. 6 months before that sidewalk. Before the eviction. Before the billionaire destroyed her life. Shanice Williams was just trying to survive. Every morning at 5:47, the alarm screamed. Every morning, she answered. Shanice stood in her small but clean 2-bedroom apartment in Vine City, Atlanta, making breakfast in her nursing scrubs. Family photos lined the walls, reminders of better times. At the kitchen table, her daughter Aaliyah sat eating cereal, her backpack covered in NASA stickers. Mommy, Mrs. Patterson says I'm the smartest in science class. Aaliyah beamed, 8 years old and full of dreams. Shanice smiled through her exhaustion. That's my girl. You're going to be a doctor someday. You mean like you? Aaliyah giggled. Baby, I'm a nurse. But you? You can be anything. Shanice kissed her daughter's forehead as the clock hit 6:32 a.m. She worked night shifts at Grady Memorial Hospital. 52 hours a week. $3,400 a month take home. Rent alone swallowed $1,850. After walking Aaliyah to Hollis Innovation Academy and waving goodbye, Shanice's smile faded. She checked her mailbox and pulled out an official-looking envelope stamped, Sterling Properties Group. Here we go again, she muttered. Ms. Loretta, her elderly neighbor with kind eyes and a walking cane, watered plants on her porch. They're raising it again, baby? Probably. But we'll manage. We always do. Shanice forced optimism into her voice. Ms. Loretta's expression darkened. She gripped Shanice's hand. That Sterling man. He got no soul, Shanice. You mark my words. Men like that don't stop taking till there's nothing left. Shanice forced another smile. It'll be fine, Ms. Loretta. It's just rent. She walked to her car, a 2007 Honda Civic with a dented bumper and faded paint. When she turned the key, the engine struggled. The check engine light glowed orange. Not now? Please not now. She tapped the dashboard like a prayer. The engine coughed, sputtered, then finally started. She exhaled in relief, but the orange light remained. She had no idea that the engine would cost her everything. While Shanice clocked into her shift that morning, 43 floors above the city in Sterling Tower's corner office, a man named Donovan Pierce made a phone call. Karen, I want every tenant in the Vine City building out in 6 months. I don't care how you do it. Start with the ones who can't fight back. He hung up, pulled out a file, flipped it open, and there, staring back at him from the first page, was Shanice Williams' lease application. He circled her name in red ink. Target number 1, he whispered. What he didn't know was that someone had been recording every word he'd just said. And in 6 months, that recording would destroy him. Donovan Pierce didn't look like a villain. At 58, he had silver hair that women complimented, a smile that charmed investors, and a $3,000 suit that whispered success without screaming it. His corner office on the 43rd floor overlooked all of Atlanta, a city he'd learned to harvest like a crop. He stood at the window, watching the morning traffic crawl below, and felt nothing. Mr. Pierce, the quarterly report. Karen Whitmore, his property manager, placed a leather folder on his desk. She'd worked for him for 5 years, efficient and cold, exactly how he liked his employees. He flipped it open. Numbers stared back at him in neat columns. 4,247 units. 47 million profit this quarter. He looked up. Why is an occupancy at 95%? Karen hesitated. Some tenants are struggling with the rent increases. Medical bills, job losses. Then replace them. His voice carried no emotion. There's always someone willing to pay more. She nodded, but something flickered in her eyes. Disgust? Pity? He didn't care enough to ask. 20 years ago, Donovan Pierce had been a small-time landlord with 12 properties and a dream. He'd studied the patterns, bought buildings in black neighborhoods when they were cheap, sat on them like a patient spider, waited for the city to remember they existed. And when gentrification came, when the coffee shops and yoga studios crept in like ivy, he struck. Renovate. Rebrand. Triple the rent. The families who'd lived there for decades? Obstacles. Nothing more. He'd built an empire on their backs and never lost a night's sleep over it. That evening, He attended a charity gala at the Hyatt Regency. Tuxedos and champagne. A string quartet playing something forgettable. He shook hands with the mayor, posed for photos with Atlanta's elite, and wrote a check for $100,000 to the Atlanta Food Bank. The cameras flashed. The crowd applauded. Later, in the back of his limousine, he laughed. "Best 100,000 I ever spent," he told his assistant. Nothing buys loyalty like fake generosity. His assistant, a nervous young man named Trevor, forced a smile. Donovan stared out the tinted window as the city lights blurred past. Somewhere out there, Shanice Williams was finishing her shift, unaware that her life had already been scheduled for demolition. He pulled out his phone and texted Karen. "Vine City Building. Accelerate the timeline. I want them out in 4 months, not 6. 3 dots appeared. Then, understood. He smiled. What Donovan didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that in a small apartment across town, a man named Ezra Cross was uploading that evening's surveillance footage to an encrypted hard drive and labeling it Pierce, Evidence File 247. The trap was closing. Donovan Pierce just didn't know he was inside it. 2 weeks later, Shanice's car betrayed her. She was driving home from a double shift, 16 hours on her feet, 3 patients coded, 1 saved, 2 lost. Her scrubs smelled like antiseptic and exhaustion. The radio played something soft and forgettable. Then the engine shuddered. Once. Twice. The check engine light that had been glowing for weeks suddenly started blinking. No. 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 She gripped the steering wheel as the car lurched, coughed, and limped into the parking lot of Joe's Auto Repair on McDonough Boulevard. The mechanic, an older man with grease-stained hands and kind eyes, shook his head after 15 minutes under the hood. "Transmission's gone, ma'am. Completely shot." Shanice felt the ground tilt beneath her. "How much?" $2,400. "Maybe more if we find other issues." She nearly fainted against the car. I don't have that." He wiped his hands on a rag, sympathetic. "I can do a payment plan, but I need at least $800 up front to order the parts." That night, Shanice sat at her kitchen table with her phone calculator glowing in the dark. Bank account, $2,100. Rent due in 3 days, $1,850. Car repair deposit, $800. The math didn't work. No matter how many times she recalculated, the numbers refused to cooperate. She could pay rent and be stranded without a car, no way to get to work, no income, eviction anyway. Or pay the car and risk eviction. Aaliyah slept in the next room, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. Shanice made her choice. 3 days later, she stood in the property management office with $1,200 in cash and a handwritten note. "Dear Ms. Whitmore, I've paid $1,200 now and will pay the remaining $650 in 2 weeks when I get paid. I've never been late in 8 years. Please understand. Shanice Williams." She slid it under the office door before dawn and prayed. The response came the next afternoon. A bright orange notice taped to her apartment door. "Pay or quit, 72-hour notice." In small print at the bottom. Total amount due, $850. Remaining rent plus $200 late fee. Aaliyah stood beside her. Reading the words, she didn't fully understand. "Mommy, what's that mean?" Shanice ripped the notice down, crumpled it in her fist. "Nothing, baby. Just grown-up stuff." But her hands were shaking. And for the first time in 8 years, she felt the ground beneath her start to crack. What she didn't know was that 43 floors above the city, Donovan Pierce had just ordered Karen to reject any payment plan. "Make an example of her," he'd said. And Karen had replied, her voice flat and obedient. "Consider it done." But what neither of them knew was that Ezra Cross had been standing outside that office door with a recording device the size of a pen, and he'd captured every single word. Shanice worked 3 consecutive shifts, 36 hours straight, until her supervisor pulled her aside. "Shanice, I'm worried about you." "What's going on?" "I'm fine," she lied. "Just tired." But she wasn't fine. She was drowning. By the end of the week, she'd scraped together the full amount through sheer force of will. Her church congregation at Ebenezer Baptist had taken up a special collection after she broke down crying during prayer. $280 in crumpled bills and quarters. She walked into Sterling Properties' downtown office on Peachtree Street with $620 in cash and hoped she didn't believe in it. The lobby was all glass and marble. Cold. Corporate. Intimidating. She waited on a leather couch for 2 hours while other people, mostly white, mostly well-dressed, came and went. The receptionist kept forgetting she was there. Finally, at 5:45, 15 minutes before closing, she was called back. Karen Whitmore's office was just as cold as the lobby. Minimal furniture. No family photos. Just files and a computer that reflected in her expressionless face. Shanice placed the cash on the desk. "This is everything I have. Please. I'll have the rest in 8 days." Karen counted it slowly, deliberately. Each bill a small torture. "This is $620. You owe $850. I know. I just need one more week." Karen slid a paper across the desk. New total, $1,050. Shanice stared at the number like it was written in a foreign language. What? Late fee, $200. Processing fee, $150. Notice posting fee, $50. You never told me about these fees. Karen's voice was a flat line. Section 14, subsection C of your lease agreement. Would you like me to get you a copy? Shanice felt something inside her break. She'd done everything right. Worked herself to exhaustion. Begged her church for help. And it still wasn't enough. "Please." Her voice cracked. "I'm a nurse. I save lives every day. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I've lived here for 8 years without a single late payment. Please, just give me a chance." Karen stared at her and said nothing. The silence stretched until it became cruel. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We close in 10 minutes. Security was called. A man in a cheap uniform escorted her through the lobby while other tenants watched. As the glass doors closed behind her, Shanice looked up. Through a window on the 20th floor, she saw him, Donovan Pierce, laughing with colleagues, drinking whiskey from crystal glasses. Their eyes met for 1 second. He didn't even register her existence. He just turned away. Ezra Cross had been invisible his entire life. At 45, he'd perfected the art of being forgotten. Average height, unremarkable face. The kind of person you'd walk past on the street and never remember. It made him exceptional at his former job. For 15 years, Ezra had been one of the FBI's top forensic accountants. Financial Crimes Division. He'd tracked money through shell companies, followed paper trails through offshore accounts, built cases that sent billionaires to prison. He'd loved the work, the puzzle, the justice, until the day his sister died. 4 years earlier, January 2020, Denise Cross was 38 years old when she lost her apartment. Single mother. 2 kids, ages 4 and 7. Worked at Walmart, 42 hours a week at $11 an hour. Did everything by the book. But Sterling Properties owned her building in the Pittsburgh neighborhood of Atlanta. And when Donovan Pierce decided the area was ready for repositioning, Denise became a number on a spreadsheet. Eviction notice. Hidden fees. Fake building violations. The pattern Ezra would come to know by heart. Denise and her kids ended up in a shelter. Then on a friend's couch. Then, when the friend couldn't afford to keep them, in her car. The Georgia Department of Family and Children Services took her kids on a Tuesday. She died of exposure behind a Kroger dumpster on a Sunday. Ezra identified her body at the morgue. Frozen. Alone. 38 years old. At her funeral, 8 people in a cold room. Ezra made a promise. "I'm going to destroy him, Denise. I swear on your life." 2 weeks later, he quit the FBI and disappeared. For 4 years, Ezra became a ghost. He worked as a maintenance man in Sterling-owned buildings. Master keys. Access to everything. He installed hidden cameras in property management offices. He photographed documents from trash bins at 3 in the morning. He recorded conversations through walls thin enough to hear a whisper. He built a database. 1,247 families. Every eviction. Every fee. Every lie. And he waited for the perfect case. The perfect plaintiff. Someone sympathetic. Credible. Desperate enough to fight. He'd been watching Shanice Williams for 6 weeks. He knew her schedule. I knew Aaliyah's school. Knew exactly how much pressure Pierce was applying. The night Shanice was humiliated in the Sterling Properties office, Ezra sat in his truck across the street and watched her walk out. She stood on the sidewalk for 20 minutes. Just stood there, staring at nothing. Then she sat in her car and put her head on the steering wheel. He could see her shoulders shaking. Ezra opened his phone. An encrypted contact labeled only, attorney. He typed, "I found her. The one who'll take him down." 3 dots. Then, "Are you sure?" Ezra watched Shanice finally start her car and drive away. "Positive. She's perfect. She just doesn't know it yet. He closed his phone and pulled out a file folder marked Operation Sterling, Phase 3, Recruitment. Donovan Pierce had 4 months left of freedom. He just didn't know the clock was already counting down. Subscribe now. What happens when these two finally meet will change everything. 10 days later, Shanice returned to the Sterling Properties office with every dollar she owed. She'd worked a triple shift, 36 hours without sleep. So exhausted, she'd nearly given the wrong medication to a patient. Her supervisor had caught the error just in time. Shanice, take a break. You're going to kill someone, or yourself. But she couldn't stop. Not until this was over. Karen accepted the payment without looking at her. $1,050 in cash. So we're good. Shanice's voice was barely a whisper. No more eviction? Karen slid a document across the desk. Emergency building renovation notice. All tenants must vacate in 60 days. Shanice stared at the words. They didn't make sense. What is this? The building inspector found code violations. Electrical systems. Plumbing. Structural concerns. It's for your safety. What violations? Everything works fine. Karen showed her an official report from Atlanta Building Inspections. Pages of technical jargon. Red stamps. An inspector's signature. All of it fake. But Shanice didn't know that yet. That evening, all 48 families in the building received the same notice. Ms. Loretta knocked on Shanice's door, paper shaking in her hand. They're pushing us out, baby. This is what I warned you about. By 9 p.m., 23 residents had gathered in the building's small lobby. Angry voices. Scared voices. Children crying. A young father with 2 kids. Where are we supposed to go? Everything costs $2,500 now. An elderly man who'd lived there 22 years. This is my home. Shanice stood up. We need to fight this. Together. She called Legal Aid Atlanta. 8-month waiting list. She contacted City Councilman Jerome Mitchell's office. We'll look into it, his assistant said, sounding bored. She created a Facebook group, Save Vine City Tenants. 247 members in 2 days. For 48 hours, hope flickered. Then Pierce moved. The timeline was reduced. 60 days became 30. Accelerated eviction due to safety concerns. Security guards appeared at the building, enforcing quiet hours, taking photos of residents, writing down license plates. Intimidation disguised as protection. People stopped organizing. Fear worked better than any threat. Aaliyah came home from school crying. What's wrong, baby? Maya's mom told her we're going to be homeless. Is that true, Mommy? Shanice held her daughter. No, baby. Mommy's going to fix this. But for the first time in her life, she didn't believe her own words. That night, she sat on the fire escape, staring at Sterling Tower in the distance. 43 floors of glass and steel. Mocking her. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something made her look. A text message. 7 words. I can help you. Meet me tomorrow. Below it, 7 a.m. Cascade Springs Nature Preserve. Come alone. A friend. Shanice stared at the message for 5 full minutes. It could be a trap, a scam, a joke, but she had nothing left to lose. She replied, Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Then, someone who knows what Pierce did to you, and to 1,246 others. Her heart stopped. The message continued. I've been watching him for 4 years. And I have proof. Cascade Springs Nature Preserve was quiet at 7 in the morning. Shanice parked her car near the trailhead, hands gripping the steering wheel. She told Ms. Loretta where she was going and to call the police if she didn't hear from her by 9. She stepped out into the cold air. Mist rose from the creek. A man approached from the jogging path. Average height. Unremarkable face. Work boots and a Carhartt jacket. She recognized him immediately. You're the maintenance guy from my building. I'm a lot more than that. Ezra Cross stopped 3 feet away, hands visible, non-threatening. My name is Ezra Cross. I used to work for the FBI. Financial Crimes Division. 15 years. Used to. I quit 4 years ago. His voice was steady. Sad. After Donovan Pierce killed my sister. He told her everything. Denise's eviction. The shelter. The car. The frozen body behind the Kroger. Shanice felt tears on her face before she realized she was crying. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be angry. Ezra opened his truck and pulled out 3 large binders. I've spent 4 years building a case against Pierce. I've documented everything. Fake inspections. Bribed officials. Illegal fees. He opened the first binder. Photos. Bank records. Recorded phone calls. 1,247 families. All evicted using the same pattern. $340 million in illegal profits. Shanice's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. Why are you showing me this? Because I need a plaintiff. Someone with a sympathetic story. Someone credible. Someone the public will believe. My life is already destroyed. What more can I lose? Everything. Or you can fight back and take everything from him. A second man approached from the parking lot. Older. Black. Well-dressed. Briefcase in hand. Shanice Williams. This is attorney Quentin Robinson. He's been fighting housing discrimination cases for 30 years. Robinson extended his hand. His grip was firm. Confident. Ms. Williams, what Donovan Pierce did to you is evil. But it's also illegal. And I want to bury him. I'm just a nurse. How do I fight a billionaire? Rosa Parks was a seamstress, Robinson said softly. Ruby Bridges was 6 years old. Ordinary people change history every single day. Ezra placed a hand on her shoulder. He thinks you're powerless. Prove him wrong. Shanice thought of Aaliyah. Thought of her grandmother who'd raised her after her mother died. Thought of Ms. Loretta and the 22-year resident and the young father with 2 kids. She thought of Denise Cross, frozen behind a dumpster. Okay. Her voice was stronger than she expected. Let's destroy him. Robinson pulled out a legal document. Williams V, Sterling Properties Group, class action lawsuit. We're filing this afternoon. We're seeking $500 million in damages for all 1,247 families. Criminal referral to the FBI for fraud, conspiracy, and bribery. And we're going public. Public. I've already contacted Jennifer Hayes at WSB-TV. She's been investigating Pierce for months. She just needed a smoking gun. Ezra tapped the binders. Now she has 3. When does this start? It already has. Robinson's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and smiled. The story goes live in 20 minutes. Shanice felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not the fragile kind that breaks. The dangerous kind that burns. What happens next? Ezra's expression darkened. Pierce is going to come after you. Hard. He'll try to destroy your credibility. Dig up your past. Make you the villain. Let him try. Robinson nodded with approval. Then let's give him a war he'll never forget. The interview aired at 6 p.m. Jennifer Hayes, WSB-TV's lead investigative reporter, didn't pull punches. The camera opened on Shanice sitting in the homeless shelter where she now lived. Belongings in garbage bags behind her. Aaliyah playing with broken toys in the corner. Tell us what happened, Jennifer said softly. And Shanice did. Every detail. The car breakdown. The hidden fees. The fake renovation notice. The security guards. The humiliation. Her voice broke when she talked about Aaliyah asking if they'd be homeless. I did everything right, she whispered to the camera. I worked myself to death. And he still took my home. The segment showed documents. Bank records proving Pierce paid off Inspector Thomas Bradshaw. Text messages between Pierce and Karen about accelerating evictions. Photos of other evicted families living in cars, shelters, under bridges. Jennifer's closing line was surgical. Donovan Pierce is worth $1.2 billion. And he built that fortune by destroying families who couldn't fight back. Until now. Within 2 hours, the video had 400,000 views on YouTube. By midnight, 2.3 million. Hashtag Justice for Shanice trended on Twitter. 45,000 tweets in the first day. Instagram. Shanice's photo, holding Aaliyah outside the shelter, was shared 180,000 times. TikTok videos flooded in. Young activists explaining tenant rights. Law students breaking down Pierce's illegal tactics. Angry rants from people who'd been evicted themselves. The story went nuclear. Celebrities weighed in. Atlanta rapper Killer Mike tweeted, "We see you, Shanice. We got you." Actress Angela Bassett, an Atlanta native, shared the story. This is systemic theft of black wealth. No more. Local politicians scrambled to respond. City council members who'd ignored Shanice's calls suddenly wanted meetings. A GoFundMe appeared overnight. By morning, it had raised $127,000. Donovan Pierce hired the best crisis management firm in Atlanta, Chandler Communications. They issued a statement within hours. These allegations are baseless and defamatory. Ms. Williams violated clear lease terms. Sterling Properties followed all legal protocols and building codes. We are prepared to defend ourselves vigorously against this frivolous lawsuit. Pierce appeared on Fox 5 Atlanta the next morning. Navy suit. American flag pin. Practiced sympathy in his eyes. Look, I understand people are upset. But Sterling Properties has created 400 jobs in Atlanta. We've invested millions in affordable housing. The host, sympathetic, nodded along. Ms. Williams' situation is unfortunate. But we have rules. Contracts. If we let one person break the rules, what message does that send? He leaned forward, voice dropping to a concerned whisper. Some people want free housing. That's not how America works. I'm not a villain for running a legal business. It worked on some people. Conservative blogs picked up the narrative, property rights under attack. Right-wing Twitter erupted. Hashtag Stand With Sterling countered hashtag Justice for Shanice. Comment sections became war zones. She should have paid her rent. Why should he lose money because she made bad choices? This is what happens when you don't plan ahead. Public opinion split 50-50. Then Pierce's team went deeper. They dug into Shanice's past. Found her 2016 bankruptcy. Medical bills from when Aaliyah was born 2 months premature, 23 days in NICU, $218,000 in hospital costs. The headline on a right-wing blog. Is Shanice Williams really a victim or just bad with money? They found photos of her at a club from 2014. Before Aaliyah was born. Before she became a single mother. Before life got hard. The caption, Party Girl Crying Poverty? Shanice read the articles on her phone in the shelter. Each word is a knife. Ms. Loretta found her crying in the bathroom. Baby, don't read that poison. They're making me look like a liar. That's what powerful people do. They can't attack the truth, so they attack you. The email arrived at 2 in the morning. Shanice's phone lit up the dark shelter room. She almost ignored it. But the subject line made her blood freeze. You've been warned. She opened it. No text. Just a photo. Aaliyah, leaving Hollis Innovation Academy. Red circle drawn around her. Below it, one sentence. Drop the case or she pays the price. Shanice's scream woke up half the shelter. She called 911 with shaking hands. Showed the police officer the email. Detective Kevin Monroe, a black man in his 40s with tired eyes, took the report seriously. We'll patrol the school. Put your daughter on a safety watch. But without a direct threat of violence, we can't arrest anyone. Someone is threatening my child. I know. And we're taking it seriously. But the email came from an anonymous server. We're tracking it, but it'll take time. Attorney Robinson arranged private security within 3 hours. A firm that specialized in protecting witnesses agreed to donate their services. But Shanice couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except that red circle around her daughter. 5 days later, they were in Fulton County Superior Court. Judge Evelyn Richardson, a black woman in her 60s with a reputation for taking no nonsense, presided over the preliminary hearing. Pierce's legal team was led by Richard Pemberton from Chandler and Hayes, one of Atlanta's most expensive law firms. White, mid-50s, $3,000 suit. Shark smile. Your Honor, this case is a shakedown, plain and simple. Ms. Williams signed a legal contract. She violated the terms. Sterling Properties followed every legal protocol. He showed the judge her bankruptcy filing. This is a pattern. Ms. Williams has a history of financial irresponsibility. She's using her daughter and a sympathetic story to extort money from a legitimate business. Shanice felt the room spin. Robinson stood. Calm. Deliberate. Your Honor, opposing counsel wants to focus on my client's finances. Let's focus on his client's crimes. He opened the first of Ezra's binders. Bank records showing Pierce paid Inspector Bradshaw $15,000. Text messages between Pierce and Karen about forcing out tenants. Recorded phone calls where Pierce ordered illegal evictions. A spreadsheet, 1,247 families. $340 million. The courtroom went silent. Judge Richardson reviewed the documents for 20 minutes. No one spoke. No one moved. Finally, she looked up. Motion to dismiss denied. This case will proceed to full discovery. Pierce's face darkened. He whispered something sharp to Pemberton. As they left the courtroom, Pierce turned to Shanice. Their eyes met, and for the first time, she saw something she hadn't seen before. Fear. That night, Shanice's car tires were slashed. Spray paint on her storage unit. Drop it. A brick through Robinson's office window with a note. Stop now. Atlanta PD suspected Pierce's people. But no proof. No arrests. The next morning, Black Lives Matter Atlanta organized a protest. 2,000 people marched from Centennial Olympic Park to Sterling Tower. They chanted, "No justice, no peace. Pierce must be stopped." News helicopters circled overhead. Pierce watched from his office window, jaw clenched. His phone rang. The board of directors. "Donovan, this is becoming a problem. Stock is down 23%. Banks are reviewing our loan agreements. I have it under control. Do you? Because it doesn't look like it." He hung up, poured whiskey with shaking hands, and made a decision he'd regret for the rest of his life. That evening, Pierce met someone in a parking garage beneath the CNN Center. A man in a black jacket, face obscured by shadows. "I need this problem eliminated," Pierce said. "The woman or the lawyer?" Pierce paused. "Then both. Make it look like an accident." The man nodded. "It'll cost you." "I don't care about the cost." They shook hands. Pierce drove away, convinced he'd just saved his empire. What he didn't know was that the FBI had been watching him for 6 weeks. And Agent Lisa Torres, Ezra's former partner, had recorded every word. Subscribe before the next chapter. When the FBI makes their move, you won't believe what happens. The trial began on a Tuesday morning in October. Fulton County Superior Court was packed. Media in the back rows. Sketch artists. Activists wearing #JusticeForShanice shirts. Every seat filled. Judge Evelyn Richardson entered. Everyone stood. "Be seated." Pierce sat at the defense table in a charcoal suit, perfectly composed. His legal team flanked him like bodyguards. Confident. Prepared. Shanice sat with Robinson at the plaintiff's table. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Robinson leaned over. "Trust me." "I do." "Then watch what happens next." The first 3 days were procedural. Witnesses. Documents. Bank records showing Pierce's payments to Inspector Bradshaw. Text messages about evictions. Pierce's lawyers fought every piece of evidence. Objected to everything. Made Robinson work for every inch. But Robinson was patient. On day 4, he called his surprise witness. The plaintiff calls Karen Whitmore to the stand. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Pierce's lawyers jumped up. "Your Honor, Ms. Whitmore is employed by the defendant." She's testifying for the plaintiff," Robinson interrupted. "And she's here voluntarily." Judge Richardson banged her gavel. Objection overruled. "Ms. Whitmore, please take the stand." Karen walked to the witness box. She didn't look at Pierce. Didn't look at anyone. She raised her right hand. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." Robinson approached slowly, deliberately. "Ms. Whitmore, how long have you worked for Sterling Properties?" 5 years. "And what is your position?" "Senior Property Manager. I oversee evictions and lease enforcement." "During those 5 years, what have you witnessed?" Karen's voice was steady. "Rehearsed. Systematic fraud. Illegal evictions. Bribery. Intimidation." Pierce leaned forward, eyes blazing. His lawyer put a hand on his arm. "Can you be more specific?" Mr. Pierce personally ordered illegal evictions in buildings scheduled for gentrification. He paid inspectors to file false reports. He created hidden fees to trap tenants who couldn't afford lawyers. "How do you know this?" Karen reached into her bag, pulled out a small digital recorder. "Because I recorded everything." The courtroom exploded. Judge Richardson banged her gavel 3 times. "Order." Robinson smiled. "How many recordings, Ms. Whitmore?" 418 hours. Every conversation with Mr. Pierce about evictions, fees, and bribes. Every meeting where he ordered us to clear out buildings. Every time he laughed about destroying families. She looked at Pierce for the first time. "I have 5 years of proof." Pierce stood up. "You lying." "Mr. Pierce, sit down." Judge Richardson's voice cut like a blade. He didn't sit. He pointed at Karen, face red with rage. "You set me up? This whole thing is a trap." His lawyer grabbed his arm. "Donovan, stop talking. She's a vindictive." "Mr. Pierce." The judge stood. "One more word, and you'll be held in contempt." Robinson let the moment breathe. Then he asked the question everyone needed answered. "Ms. Whitmore, why did you record these conversations?" Karen's voice finally cracked. "Because 7 years ago, Donovan Pierce destroyed my family too." Silence. "My younger sister, Michelle. She was 32. Single mother. 3 kids. She lived in one of his buildings in College Park." Tears ran down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. "He evicted her using the same tactics. Fake violations. Hidden fees. She lost her apartment, lost her kids to foster care. 6 months later, she jumped off the Jackson Street Bridge. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear people breathing. I got hired by Sterling Properties 2 years after she died. I worked my way up to property manager, became his most trusted employee, and for 5 years, I recorded every crime he committed. She turned to Pierce. You took my sister, so I took everything from you. Pierce's face went white, then red, then purple. He lunged toward Karen. Security grabbed him before he reached her. He screamed over their shoulders. I gave you a career. I trusted you. Karen's voice was ice, and I used that trust to destroy you. Judge Richardson banged her gavel. Bailiff, remove Mr. Pierce from my courtroom. As they dragged him out, he shouted at Shanice. You're nothing. You're a nobody. I've crushed 1,000 of you. The doors slammed behind him. Robinson turned to Judge Richardson. Your Honor, I'd like to submit these recordings as evidence. All 418 hours. Granted. He looked at Pierce's legal team. They were already whispering to each other, frantic, realizing they'd lost. I'd also like to request that this court refer this case to the Georgia Attorney General for criminal prosecution. Judge Richardson nodded. I'll be making that referral today. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Ms. Whitmore, were you working with the FBI? Did you know Ezra Cross? Karen stopped, looked directly at the cameras. Ezra Cross is my ex-husband. We divorced 8 years ago. But 4 years ago, after his sister Denise died the same way my sister Michelle died, we reconnected. She paused. We've been planning this for 5 years. Every move calculated. Every piece of evidence documented. Why? Because men like Donovan Pierce think they're untouchable, and someone needed to prove them wrong. That evening, Georgia Attorney General Christopher Hayes held a press conference. We are opening a criminal investigation into Sterling Properties Group and Donovan Pierce personally. Charges under consideration include fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, bribery of public officials, and racketeering. Pause. We are also investigating the threat made against Shanice Williams' daughter and the murder-for-hire plot captured by the FBI. The reporters erupted with questions. Mr. Pierce will be arrested within the hour. At 6:47 p.m., FBI agents knocked on the door of Pierce's Buckhead penthouse. He answered in a bathrobe, whiskey in hand. Donovan Pierce, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and intimidation of a witness. They turned him around. Handcuffs clicked. As they led him to the elevator, he saw his reflection in the mirrored wall. And for the first time in his life, Donovan Pierce looked small. 1 week after Pierce's arrest, Attorney Robinson called Shanice to his office. She arrived with Aaliyah. The little girl colored at a table in the corner while the adults talked. We've been going through discovery. Every property Sterling Properties ever owned. Every transaction. Every deed. He placed a yellow document on the desk. And we found something. Shanice leaned forward. The paper was dated 1987. Property deed, 847 Vine Street. Owner, Evelyn Marie Williams. Her heart stopped. That's my grandmother's name. The building you were evicted from, Robinson said quietly. It originally belonged to your family. He spread out more documents. A timeline written in his careful handwriting. In 1987, your grandmother bought that building for $35,000. Everything she'd saved. She rented apartments to working families. Kept the rents affordable. Shanice touched the deed with trembling fingers. She never told me. In 1991, her husband, your grandfather, died. Medical bills piled up. She fell behind on the mortgage payments. Another document. Foreclosure notice. 1992. The bank foreclosed. Sold it at auction to Sterling Properties for $40,000. Shanice did the math. That building is worth $8.5 million now. Exactly. Robinson pulled out a court transcript. Williams V, First National Bank, 1992. Your grandmother sued. Claimed the bank used predatory lending practices. That they'd deliberately set her up to fail. What happened? She lost. She couldn't afford a lawyer. Represented herself. The judge ruled against her. He showed her a photograph from the courthouse that day. An elderly black woman, Shanice's grandmother Evelyn, standing alone in the hallway. Shoulders slumped. Defeated. And in the background, barely visible, a younger man in an expensive suit. 28-year-old Donovan Pierce. Smiling. There's more, Robinson said. He pulled out another document. Hidden in Pierce's files, marked confidential. A handwritten note from a bank executive to Pierce in 1991. Appraisal adjusted per your request. Official value, $35,000. Actual value, $125,000. Below it, a canceled check. $5,000 from Sterling Properties to the bank vice president. A bribe. They conspired to undervalue your grandmother's property. She didn't just lose it to bad luck. She was robbed. Shanice couldn't breathe. After the foreclosure, there was one more court interaction. He showed her a witness statement from the courthouse hallway. 1992. Someone had documented a confrontation between Evelyn Williams and Donovan Pierce. Evelyn's words, recorded by a court reporter who happened to be present. You took my home. You took my family's future. I pray you never know the pain you've caused. But if you do, I pray someone shows you the mercy you never showed me. Pierce's response. I bought a property. That's business. Shanice was crying now. Aaliyah looked up from her coloring. Mommy, I'm okay, baby. But she wasn't okay. She was shattered and rebuilt all at once. She knew, Shanice whispered. She knew what kind of man he was. And she never told me. She probably wanted to protect you from the shame, from the pain. Robinson pulled out one more document. A revised lawsuit filing. Williams V, Sterling Properties Group, amended complaint. We're adding a wrongful taking claim. Dating back to 1992. We're seeking return of the property plus 32 years of lost equity. He wrote a number on a legal pad. $14.7 million. That's what your grandmother's building is worth today? Plus lost rental income. Plus damages. Shanice stared at the number. We're not just fighting for you anymore, Robinson said. We're finishing what your grandmother started. The story broke the next day. Billionaire stole building from black woman twice, 32 years apart. Every major network picked it up. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS. The photos of young Evelyn in 1987, smiling, hopeful, standing in front of her building. Next to photos of Shanice in 2024, evicted from that same building. Generational theft. Systemic racism. The American nightmare. It went beyond viral. It became a movement. Op-eds in the New York Times. The theft of black wealth. How one building tells America's story. Donovan Pierce became more than a villain. He became a symbol. And Shanice Williams became more than a victim. She became a warrior carrying her grandmother's torch. That night, Shanice visited Oakland Cemetery where her grandmother was buried. She knelt at the grave. Aaliyah beside her. Grandma Evelyn, I didn't know. You never told me. The wind rustled through the trees. But I'm going to finish it. For you. For Mom. For Aaliyah. For everyone. She placed flowers on the grave and whispered the words her grandmother had said to Pierce 32 years ago. I pray someone shows you the mercy you never showed me. Shanice smiled through her tears. But Grandma, I don't think I will. 3 days after the second twist broke, Shanice received a call from Grady Memorial Hospital. Not the emergency department where she used to work. Medical records. Ms. Williams, this is unusual, but we found something in your grandmother's file. A sealed envelope. She left very specific instructions. Shanice's heart hammered. What kind of instructions? That it should only be opened if, and I'm reading directly from her note, someone ever challenges Donovan Pierce in court. Shanice drove to the hospital that afternoon. Aaliyah came with her. The medical records clerk handed her a manila envelope. Yellow with age. Sealed with wax. On the front, in shaky handwriting. To my Shanice. Open only when you fight him. I knew you would. Love, Grandma Evelyn. Dated, December 2018. 1 month before her grandmother died. Shanice sat in the hospital chapel. The same chapel where she used to pray during her breaks. Her hands shook as she broke the seal. Inside, a letter. 3 pages. Written in the careful cursive of someone who knew these might be her last words. My dearest Shanice. If you're reading this, it means you've done what I couldn't do. You've stood up to Donovan Pierce. I never told you about the building. I was ashamed. Ashamed I couldn't save it. Ashamed I couldn't protect our family's legacy. When your mother died and I raised you, I vowed you'd never know that shame. But I always knew he'd come for you someday. Men like Pierce are like locusts. They keep taking until there's nothing left. I've been saving something for 32 years. Shanice's breath caught. In my safety deposit box at SunTrust Bank on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, box number 847, there are documents. Proof that the bank colluded with Pierce in 1992. Proof they forged appraisal documents to undervalue my property. Proof that everything they did to me was illegal. I didn't have the strength to fight then. I was alone, afraid, broken. But you, my sweet girl, you have fire. You always have. When Pierce comes for you, and he will, use these documents. Finish what I started. I love you. I'm so proud of you. And I'll be watching from heaven as you take back what's ours. All my love, Grandma Evelyn. Shanice couldn't see through her tears. Aaliyah hugged her. What does it say, Mommy? It says, your great-grandmother knew this would happen, and she left us a weapon. The next morning, Shanice, Robinson, and Ezra stood in SunTrust Bank. The manager retrieved box 847. Inside, a folder wrapped in plastic. Preserved perfectly. Documents from 1992. Original bank appraisal, $35,000. Independent appraisal Evelyn had secretly paid for, $125,000. Handwritten note from bank officer to Pierce. Appraisal adjusted per your request. Copy of $5,000 check from Sterling Properties to Bank VP. Photographs of the building showing its true condition. Letters between Pierce and bank executives. Everything. Robinson stared at the documents, speechless. Your grandmother had the smoking gun all along. Why didn't she use it? In 1992, a black woman versus a white bank and white real estate developer? She wouldn't have stood a chance. He looked up. But now the world is watching. Ezra photographed every page. This is it. This buries him completely. Robinson filed an emergency motion that afternoon. The evidence was submitted to Judge Richardson. Pierce's lawyers tried to block it. This evidence is 32 years old. Statute of limitations. The conspiracy is ongoing, Robinson countered. He evicted Ms. Williams from the same property he stole from her grandmother. The statute never started because the crime never stopped. Judge Richardson reviewed the documents for an hour. Finally, motion granted. This evidence will be admitted. Pierce's lead attorney, Pemberton, looked like he might be sick. That evening, the story broke again. Grandmother left evidence from grave to destroy billionaire. It was almost too cinematic to be real. The sealed letter. The safety deposit box. The 32-year-old proof. One journalist wrote, Evelyn Williams reached from beyond death to get justice. This isn't just a legal case. It's a ghost story. Shanice visited her grandmother's grave again. You knew, didn't you? You knew I'd need this. The wind moved through the oak trees. I won't let you down, Grandma. I promise. The night before the final verdict, Pierce's lawyer requested an emergency meeting. Robinson advised against it. He'll try to manipulate you. Beg for mercy. I need to hear what he has to say. They met in a small courthouse conference room. Pierce sat across from Shanice. He'd aged 20 years in 3 months. Gray skin, hollow eyes, shaking hands. No more billionaire swagger. Just a broken man. Your grandmother came to see me, he said quietly. December 18th, 2018. 3 weeks before she died. Shanice's world tilted. What? She walked into my office. Security almost threw her out. But something made me let her in. His voice cracked as he told the story. Evelyn had placed an old photograph on his desk. From 1987. Young Evelyn, smiling, holding baby Shanice. Standing in front of the building. I remembered her then. The woman from 1992. What did she say? She said, I came to warn you. You've spent 32 years taking from people who have nothing. One day, someone will take from you. Pierce's hands trembled. I laughed at her. Called security. Had her removed from my building. He looked up, eyes red. As they escorted her out, she turned back and said, I forgive you, Donovan Pierce. But God won't. And neither will history. Pierce broke down. She died 3 weeks later. Heart attack. When I heard, I didn't think about it. Didn't care. He wiped his face. But every night since you filed this lawsuit, I see her face. I hear her words. Someone you hurt will take everything. She was right. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know. I destroyed 1,247 families. I made $340 million. I lived in a tower made of other people's suffering. His voice broke. And for what? I'm 58 years old. No wife. No children. No real friends. Just lawyers and people who wanted my money. He looked at Shanice with something that might have been remorse. Your grandmother had more in her broken-down building than I ever had in my empire. Shanice stood up. My grandmother forgave you. I won't. Pierce looked up, desperate. But I'll do something better. I'll make sure every family you destroyed gets justice. That's how I'll honor her. She walked to the door. Pierce called after her. I'm sorry. She stopped. Didn't turn around. So am I. Sorry that you wasted your entire life being cruel. And she left. The verdict. The courtroom was standing room only. Judge Richardson entered. Everyone stood. In the matter of Williams versus Sterling Properties Group, this court finds the defendant guilty on all counts. The room exploded. Judge Richardson banged her gavel. Fraud. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Bribery of public officials. Racketeering. Intimidation of witnesses. Pierce sat perfectly still. The civil judgment is as follows: $780 million to be distributed among all 1,247 plaintiff families. Gasps throughout the courtroom. The property located at 847 Vine Street, along with damages, is awarded to Shanice Williams in the amount of $14.7 million. Shanice couldn't breathe. Robinson squeezed her hand. Mr. Pierce, you will also face criminal sentencing in federal court. Given the severity of your crimes, I'm recommending 18 to 20 years. Pierce was led away in handcuffs. As he passed Shanice, their eyes met one final time. He mouthed, I'm sorry. She said nothing, because some apologies come too late. Outside, reporters swarmed. Ms. Williams, how do you feel? Shanice held Aaliyah's hand. Looked directly into the cameras. My grandmother fought this man in 1992 and lost. Today we won. Not just for me. Not just for her. For every family that Donovan Pierce destroyed. What will you do now? She smiled through her tears. I'm going to buy back my grandmother's building. And I'm going to turn it into everything he never was. A place of mercy. Of justice. Of home. 3 months later, the settlement checks arrived by courier. 1,247 families. Average payout, $625,000 each. Shanice's personal settlement, $14.7 million. She stared at the number on the check for a full minute. She could walk away, live comfortably forever, never work another day. Instead, she called Robinson. I want to buy back the building, and I want to do something bigger. The purchase. The building at 847 Vine Street was purchased from Pierce's bankrupted estate for $3.1 million. Shanice paid cash. Renovation, $1.8 million. New plumbing, modern appliances, fresh paint in warm colors, solar panels on the roof, a community garden. But she preserved the bones, the history, the soul. Above the front door, a new sign. Williams Family Residences. On the side of the building, a mural, 20 feet tall. Portrait of grandmother Evelyn, painted by a local artist. Beautiful, powerful, watching over her neighborhood. Text beneath. Evelyn Marie Williams, 1943 to 2019. She never gave up. The grand reopening. 200 people gathered for the ribbon cutting. News cameras. City officials. Families Pierce had evicted, now coming home. Ms. Loretta got the first unit. Ground floor, no stairs. She cried when she got the keys. Baby girl, your grandmother is dancing in heaven. The rent, $650 per month. Below market rate. Locked in for 10 years. No credit checks. No discrimination. No hidden fees. Priority given to the families Pierce had evicted. 48 units. 48 second chances. The foundation. Shanice stood at a podium in the building's community room. Today, I'm announcing the creation of the Evelyn Williams Housing Justice Fund. $5 million to start. Applause. This fund will provide free legal aid to tenants fighting illegal evictions. Free lawyers. Court costs covered. Investigative support. She looked at Ezra and Karen in the crowd. Because no one should face a billionaire alone. In the first year, the fund helped 212 families. Ezra and Karen. They stood together at the reopening, not as a couple, but as partners in justice. We did it, Karen said. For Michelle. For Denise. They'd be proud. Karen started a nonprofit, Tenant Rights Defense Network, training organizers, teaching people their rights, fighting predatory landlords nationwide. Ezra published his book, The Sterling Files, How One Billionaire Stole the American Dream. It hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Stayed there for 8 weeks. He donated every penny to the Evelyn Williams Fund. The book became required reading in law schools. Students called it the case that changed tenant law in America. Attorney Robinson. Robinson used the Williams case as a blueprint. In the next 2 years, he won 12 more major cases against predatory landlords, recovered over $2 billion for exploited families. The NAACP gave him their highest honor, but he kept Shanice's photo on his desk. She's the one who started it all, he'd tell young lawyers. Never underestimate an angry mother. The museum. In the lobby of Williams' family residences, Shanice created a small museum. Glass cases holding grandmother Evelyn's original 1987 deed. Court papers from 1992. The sealed letter from 2018. Photos of all 1,247 families who'd been evicted. School groups visited to learn about housing justice. Teachers used it to teach about systemic racism. Generational wealth. The power of persistence. A timeline on the wall showed the 32-year fight. At the end, a quote from Evelyn's letter. "You have fire. You always have." National impact. The Georgia state legislature passed the Sterling Prevention Act in 2025. New protections for tenants. Independent verification of all building inspections. Caps on late fees and processing fees. Mandatory payment plan options. Criminal penalties for landlord fraud. 12 other states adopted similar laws within a year. Tenant advocacy groups called it the most significant housing reform in 50 years. And it all started with one nurse who refused to be invisible. Pierce's fate. Donovan Pierce was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Financial crimes. Conspiracy. Witness intimidation. Attempted murder for hire. All assets seized and liquidated. Estate value at death, -$47 million. More debts than assets. He died of a heart attack in prison 14 months into his sentence. Age 59. 6 people attended his funeral. All employees required to be there. No family. No friends. No legacy. Just a cautionary tale. The obituary in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution was 3 paragraphs. The comments section had over 4,000 responses. Not one was sympathetic. 2 years later, Williams' family residences celebrated its 2nd anniversary with a block party. Bounce houses. Food trucks. A DJ playing Atlanta hip-hop. Children everywhere. Shanice stood on a small stage with Aaliyah, now 10 years old. 2 years ago, I was on this same street, watching my belongings get thrown on the curb. I felt powerless, worthless, broken. The crowd was silent. But my grandmother taught me something. She taught me that losing a battle doesn't mean losing the war. She lost her building in 1992, but she never lost her dignity. She never lost her faith that one day, justice would come. She pointed to the mural. "Grandma, we did it. We took back what was yours. What was ours? What belongs to this community?" Aaliyah took the microphone. "I'm Aaliyah Williams. I'm 10 years old. When I was 8, a bad man tried to make us homeless." Her voice was strong, clear, but my mom showed me something. She showed me that one person can change the world. And when I grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer. And I'm going to help people just like my mom and great-grandma Evelyn. The crowd erupted. Shanice returned to nursing. Part-time. By choice. She still loved helping people. I still love the work. But now she also ran the foundation. Spoke at tenant rights rallies. Testified before Congress about housing reform. Her life was bigger than she'd ever imagined. And every morning, when she looked at that mural of her grandmother, she felt her watching. 10 years later, Aaliyah Williams, age 20, stood in a courtroom. Law school intern at Emory University. Top of her class. She was arguing her first case. Defending an elderly woman facing eviction. The opposing lawyer was expensive. Confidence. Represented a corporate landlord. But Aaliyah had studied the Williams case. Knew every argument. Every precedent. She closed with this. "Your Honor, my great-grandmother once stood in a courtroom like this, alone, and lost everything. My mother fought in this very courthouse and won everything back. Today, I stand here for everyone who can't afford justice. And I won't lose." The judge ruled in her favor. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked, "How does it feel to win your first case?" Aaliyah smiled. "It feels like carrying a torch. My great-grandmother lit it. My mom kept it burning. And I'm going to pass it to the next generation. What would you say to young people fighting powerful systems?" She looked directly at the camera. "That ordinary people change history every single day. You don't need money or power. You just need fire. And the courage to fight when everything tells you to quit." That evening, she visited Oakland Cemetery. Stood at her great-grandmother's grave. The flowers Shanice had placed were still fresh. I did it, great-grandma. My first case. I won. She touched the headstone. Mom says you're watching. I hope that's true, because I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to help so many people. The wind moved through the oak trees. And somewhere, somehow, Evelyn Williams was smiling. Still not subscribed? You just witnessed proof that one person can destroy a billionaire. Subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Disclaimer: this story is fictional, but inspired by thousands of real families facing eviction, gentrification, and housing injustice across America. In 2024, over 3.6 million eviction filings were made in the United States. 70% of those evicted were families of color. Know your rights. Organize your community. Fight back. The fight continues. But so does the hope. Drop a comment telling us what part hit you hardest. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? More stories like this are coming.